Welcome back, everyone. I just wait that all of you are comfortably seated. So now we are coming to a number of important messages in the form of keynote speeches, and I would like to welcome the panelists, and first and foremost Mr. Henrik Hollerlei, Director General of DigiMove. Welcome, Henrik. Carlo Borghini, Executive Director of the Shift Rail Joint Undertaking, and he has already been a guest on the podium since this morning. And we have from the European Union Agency for Network Information Security, ENISA, we have Rosen Naidenov from the Critical Infrastructure Unit. Rosen. We are trying to touch the subjects, obviously, of ERTMS, digitalisation in general, big data we already heard about, and of course, what about innovation in the context of safety and security. And just in order to kick off the discussion, I would like to share with you a couple of ideas on innovative regulation. And possibly you're puzzled, what does this mean? How can regulation be innovative? But I try to explain to you that innovation is not just something on the technical level or on processes, but also innovation needs to evolve with time. And I would like to start with the big question that all of us have. The big question is, what is the best mode of transport in order to solve the problems of humanity? We all know the challenges of climate change, and we all know that we need to find also ways to reduce emissions in the transport sector. Obviously, the solution is that all modes of transport need to work together in the most environmentally friendly way. And rail should play a key role as the backbone of the multimodal transport system. But rail has one major issue. The issue is that rail is the only transport mode that doesn't have global rules. In other words, rail is very fragmented, and the very subject of our conference here in Valenciennes today, the control, command and signaling system, is a key driver of fragmentation. If you look to the bottom here, there is a color code. The color code is blue means European solution, and orange means national or specific solution. And indeed, you see that only a very small fraction, and this is obviously the fraction related to ETCS, is harmonized at European level. So this is a key challenge, a key task for regulation. And just to give you some consolation, there has already been progress. And the progress in regulation is mainly due to the introduction of the Forest Railway Package. Because with the Forest Railway Package, the onboard subsystem of the CCS system is subject to vehicle authorization, and for international traffic, this vehicle authorization is carried out by the European Union Agency for Railways. Then, for trackside, likewise, with the Forest Railway Package, the agency has the role of trackside approval, also contributing to a harmonized trackside system. And in the latest version of the TSI, the 2019 version of the TSI, we have introduced the ETCS system compatibility principle, and on the basis of that principle we can actually validate firstly the compliance of the onboard unit, and with a compliant onboard unit with a generic product of a standard onboard unit, we are in turn able to validate a piece of trackside, and we can associate with that piece of trackside a type, ETCS system compatibility type. So it's a major simplification and it goes in the right direction. But this is only a first step. And now I'm coming to the more innovative solutions that we need in order to respond to the challenges that we have. We heard just before the break about the game changers. ATO, new radio system, braking curves, level 3, you name it. The problem that we have is what I call the upgrade problem. If we look to the left, this is the very simple situation. You have two systems, and in ERTMS normally system 1 is the onboard and system 2 is the trackside. If you update one, you have a consequential update of the second. If you touch the second, you have a consequence on the first. But now, if we look to the right picture, if we have more than two systems, and if the first system impacts the third, and the third feeds back on the second, we will be in a continuous cycle of updates, and we will never have a stable system, and this, of course, is a massive stumbling block. I heard the word business case many times this morning, but actually this need to continuously updating the system is one of the major drivers of cost, both for OPEX, because it is maintenance when you constantly have to update the system, but also capital expenditure, because sometimes you cannot simply update, you need to replace the system. So we need to find answers to solving this upgrade problem. If we don't find these answers, we cannot materialize the vision that we mentioned this morning, and Keir issued the 4 key principles. Now, the suggestion that we put on the table is modularization, meaning that we are working together with the ERTMS stakeholder platform on identifying the most relevant building blocks for the control command system. And here I have intentionally stated control command because it is not restricted to ERTMS only. And we need to make this building block architecture modular and upgradable. We also need to have loose coupling between the individual models, because with tight coupling we will have the situation that I showed on the previous slide, and we also need to find a solution to the safety case, and the answer here will be modular safety, meaning if we have one module certified, a change to this model should not imply any repercussions on the safety case of another module. And we could even envisage an innovation in a regulation that for each one of these modules, and the modules should be, I'm using the words of Stefan Schmidt now, these should be fully specified, off-the-shelf products. So an organization is manufacturing these products, and we could introduce actually the principle of a design authority for these modules, where we, similar as in aviation, we don't authorize the product, we authorize or we certify the design organization, and the design organization will then be in charge of guaranteeing that the specification for the respective module is met. Now, so I need to go one back. We have one problem, and that problem transpired in particular over the workshops. This is the current situation with our TSIs. We have regular updates, and now we have come to a sequence of a TSI upgrade every 5 years. Now you have one project, and as soon as a new TSI appears, the existing project, but also the existing infrastructure has a problem, because the existing infrastructure, the existing products have to prove that they are compliant with the new TSI. So usually there is a short transition phase, and then you have the possibility of derogation or upgrade, but at one point in time you don't even have the possibility of derogation, and so on and so forth. And the proposal for innovative regulation that I am making is we need to absolutely invert the situation. So if we have a specification, and I call it version 1, translated into ERTMS, this would mean baseline 3, release 2, this version should be kept alive for a defined lifetime, and the burden of proof would then be when a next TSI comes, the specification 2, the new system has to demonstrate that it is backwards compatible with the specification 1. So we would completely reverse the current process, and in my view, seeing the list of game changers, seeing the list of possible modules, if we want to avoid the constant upgrade problem, we have no other choice than finally arriving at such situation. Elements of this are, of course, already available. In ERTMS we have the principle of compatible changes, but we need to also formalize it. So away from transition periods, away from the need to go to a NOBO and ask for recertification of an already certified module, to a managed evolution of specifications. And I would like to conclude with perhaps the most innovative idea. We will have, none to the least, enabled by the FRMCS, the communication system, we will have the possibility to integrate the transport modes. And to the left, I show one quite realistic possibility. If we have communication between trains and cars, we can, for instance, eliminate hazards that currently exist on level crossings. By the way, this is a drawing done by rail enthusiasts, and of course it shows that rail is blocked favoring the motorway, but it should be actually the other way around. But that means that we have to move further away from a rules-based approach to a risk-based approach. We need again to evolve towards the design organization approval, and also, and this is important in relation to cybersecurity, because we need to quickly introduce batches. So we need to come to a staged approval process, meaning we start with laboratory tests and demonstrators, like in the scope of Shift2Rail, then supervised field trials, possibly also still in the scope of Shift2Rail, and then we move on to restricted deployment, perhaps in defined areas only, before we come into the general deployment. By the way, this is the methodology that is already followed in many other sectors. In medicines, this is the process, and partially in automation. But if we want to evolve towards a multimodal transport system, we also need to rethink authorization. And possibly, rail needs to lower some of the processes. Automotive and others need to raise their level, and we should come to an integrated, innovative approach to regulation, which in turn should support innovation, which we need, particularly in order to make all the game changers that we are discussing today reality. So, with these few introductory remarks, I would like to hand over to Henrik. Henrik, please.
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Josef, dear friends from and friends of the rail sector. And I would also like to welcome many of you who come from outside the borders of Europe. I have been told that there is also quite a significant international presence. You are cordially all welcome here. And it's great to have you also as part of the discussions, and I hope that it is something which helps us to deepen the cooperation between Europe and the rest of the world. And I think also that in the area of rail sector there is quite a lot of good things that we would be able to share with you. But it is a great pleasure to be here to address this conference and also to share with you some of my thoughts on the role of rail sector to achieve smarter and also more sustainable mobility. My main message, just to say it already now, would be that rail must embrace the opportunities which come with the digitalisation process, step up efforts to significantly increase the market share in freight transport and be able to attract more passengers in the future. The European Commission will continue to support the sector, but the momentum must fully be embraced by yourself. If we look back over the last 2 or 3 decades, well, we clearly see how much our society, economy, but as well as the mobility and transport sector has changed and transformed. Things today do change, and things will change even more profoundly. Even if we do not always immediately grasp the speed and the scope of that change. But my bet is that the change in the next decade would be more significant than perhaps during the last 5 decades, or even more. Take smart solutions. They are changing our lives and society faster than any other big disruption in the history of humankind. Transport is definitely an area where the digital revolution is clearly visible and also disruptive in a positive sense. Take sustainability. It will bring another far-reaching change in the mobility and transport sector through greening and environmentally more conscious choices done by people, but also done by the businesses. Against that background, the rail sector is very well placed in order to play a major role in reducing the environmental footprint of the whole transport sector. A sector that is responsible for 1/4 of the EU greenhouse gas emissions and which remains one of the most difficult and challenging sectors to decarbonize. Rail sector itself, in turn, is very energy efficient and largely electrified in Europe. This is the reason why the European strategies for the CO2 reduction see a lot of potential in supporting the further development of railways. However, the rail sector will have to itself become much more efficient and to increase its relative weight. We need stronger and better integrated rail sector which acts as a backbone within a smoothly connected, interoperable, single European transport area. And that, in turn, would actually help us to, first, achieve our overarching goal of transport decarbonization as part of the reduction of the environmental footprint of the sector. Secondly, to improve the efficiency of the EU logistics and supply chain. Thirdly, tackle congestion through moving the freight to rail. However, as you well know, in order to achieve that, more reliability and predictability from the sector is much needed for its users and customers. The new European Commission, which is to start later on this year, is proposing a European Green Deal, the most ambitious idea on sustainable development which has ever been proposed in Europe. Mobility and transport sector has here a significant role to play, and it will become more sustainable only when we are able to increase the efficiency of the transport system as a whole. Today, here, I would like to particularly focus on digitalisation, as I believe that if rail gets it right and fully embraces the opportunities, then the sustainability impact will follow through greater use of rail services. But it's not self-evident, and it's not for granted. We have put in place the market liberalisation elements which are necessary to improve the performance and competition. It's now important to make them a reality and fully implement the fourth railway package. This is a big condition. We cannot talk about rail becoming more important, getting a bigger share, increasing its relative weight, if we don't have a functioning market, if we are not able to compete on both sides of the borders, if the market is not open. And here, implementing the fourth railway package is a must. We have also created a Europe-wide technical framework for rail, and given the European Union Agency for Railways the means to ensure a safe and interoperable rail system. I'm very pleased to see how ERA has been developing, and I'm very grateful to Josef for his excellent leadership. At the same time also, the Commission has provided significant financial support to the rail sector that benefits over 70% from the 24 billion of the Connecting Europe facility. It is an important infrastructure financing facility that we have in the EU budget. I say that especially so that the guests outside Europe would understand what I'm talking about. During this financial framework, so from 2014 onwards, in addition to the 70%, which is around 15 billion, also more than 1 billion has been committed to support the ERTMS project. Now, it is essential to ensure that the rail sector seizes the benefits of these investments and modernizes itself through digitalisation, makes itself more competitive, and delivers fully on the single European rail area. The impact of the digitalisation is seen in each transport mode, and rail must equally keep up with this transformation. It has to do more and be bold and fast in implementing the solutions that new technological innovations provide. For example, compared to other transport modes, we still struggle to get the real-time information on freight train arrivals. We also seem to struggle to get information about timetables and the positions of the rail. This is not serious. It does not make any sense. And solutions must be found fast, as the outcome would be definitely worth it, worth to have this rectified. Digitalization coupled with automation is the only way how we can also considerably increase the capacity without major infrastructure investments, further reduce energy consumption, maintain highest level of safety, increase the operational flexibility and reduce operating costs. And we are all very well aware that if we manage to seize the momentum, and if the rail sector is becoming bigger, bolder, we need more capacity. Capacity will become a huge challenge. Capacity is already a huge challenge. So if the sector would be really capable to increase its market share and get more people and freight to use rail solutions, we will soon be faced with a severe capacity crunch. With the existing infrastructure, it would not be possible to significantly increase the throughput. Only digital solutions can bring some additional flexibilities. It is a very severe challenge and must be also in the center of our focus of the future. And I have no doubt that this is a topic which is going to be much more discussed and debated over the next years to come, because also building new infrastructure in Europe is a major challenge. So we need to get everything possible out from the existing infrastructure and use these new solutions in order to achieve that. Let me now turn to the framework for delivering digitalization and focus first on the control, command and signaling. My starting point is the need for a genuine European system building on ERTMS. Now, only a small part of the control, command and signaling value chain uses standardized European products, essentially ERTMS. Elsewhere, national systems still dominate. This is inefficient, not interoperable, and does not provide the best available safety solution, but also doesn't allow the creation of the real single European rail area. To be blunt, this is not giving us the benefit of one of Europe's greatest assets, the single market. My team, working with ERA, with Shift to Rail, and consulting with the sector through the ERTMS stakeholder platform, has drawn up a framework on principles and deliverables to move to a genuinely European approach for all signaling and command control, which has been shared also with many of you. In this framework, the first key principle is enhanced interoperability. So we put them also here, so that, well, somewhere here, so that it is easy to grasp these 4 pillars that are essential. New functions must not come at the cost to the interoperability of the network. This means that the automatic train operation or the new radio communication system must fulfill the core principle that onboard systems work seamlessly with trackside equipment regardless of the supplier and network. At the same time, we must be more ambitious on harmonizing operational rules, as the rules add significantly to the cost and complexity of the railway. We need to replace them by a European approach. And I'm also happy to see that this process has actually been quite successful. We have moved on a lot, we have achieved, but we can go further than that. In fact, we have to go further than that. The second key principle is a cheaper, secure, and future-proof system. We already know the urgent improvements that need to be introduced. The first state-of-the-art radio communication that is moving to 5G-based solutions also as quickly as possible, or should I also say, as quickly as the 5G becomes really deployable. Secondly, the automated train operations deployed on a wider scale. Of course, we want that. And thirdly, essentially, ERTMS level 3 operations. In order to achieve these improvements, we have to address the architecture of the system, and the new functionalities should be implemented in a much more flexible and also adaptable way. We just cannot continue to live with the situation where incorporating the new technologies means having to replace the whole system, or very expensive retrofitting, We are not going to make any progress in these circumstances, and we are not going to make the improvements that are also expected from us and from the sector. I equally see considerable benefit through achieving much greater standardization in the CCS system. In particular, we need standardized interfaces with a view to facilitating maintenance, upgrade, deployment of new functions. This will support our third key principle, managed evolution. Yes, we don't need a revolution, but we need a well-managed evolution. And it is crucially important that we do not undermine current investments. I want to reassure the operators and the infrastructure managers that deploying ERTMS baseline 3 and future iterations on board and trackside will not be a lost investment. We just have to guarantee that. The fourth key principle, the fourth pillar, is fast deployment and development. The digital railway will be based on the ERTMS, which means going beyond the European deployment plan. Wow, now we cannot even keep pace with the European deployment plan. It also means having clearer plans and targets from the member states to remove legacy systems. We need here to be ambitious so that the benefits and cost savings of pure ERTMS networks can be delivered rapidly. It's also best proof of the added value that the new system can provide. There is no more time to lose, which means also a concerted effort to address the present bottleneck related to the retrofitting of the onboard ERTMS units. Connecting Europe Facility and other EU financing instruments will be available to continue to support this effort through traditional grant financing and new innovative financing models like the lending facility. But also, be very careful and be well aware, especially our good European friends here, the Connecting Europe Facility too has principles which have been laid down, but it still has not got any financing. And the negotiations on the next EU long-term budget are ongoing. And some of the proposals which come from some of the member states want to slash this. So we will not have that money that we would expect in order to be able to develop the rail further. So also it is very important that we reach out to your governments and to make sure that we have also a centralized EU grant budget that can help us in this process. And another important element in this context also is the cost of the onboard deployment and the issue of fair migration. We must ensure appropriate balance of benefits and costs for the different actors, be they the railway undertakings or infrastructure managers. This is complementary. Translating these four principles into deliverables will be the mandate of the work for DigiMove, ERA and Shift to Rail in order to achieve these goals. So we all have to work very closely together, and we all have to work with you as well. Our plan is also that the Commission will adopt in 2022 an ambitious package of interoperability standards, the TSIs, in order to provide the additional digital functionalities and the framework of a more modular and flexible onboard architecture, something also which has been discussed and continues to be discussed with you. Some of you have asked also if ERTMS is sufficiently future-proof and whether they are investing in the right technology and not in a technology that in a few years' time will be obsolete. These are legitimate concerns and questions, and we should address also with maximum clarity and resolve. ERTMS must be the platform on which future innovations will be added as soon as they become available, starting with the 5G. It has to be a platform layer where it's possible to plug in new things, and which should also be expandable from that purpose. And that's not only the task of the Commission to ensure that, but of the entire sector. And I also expect very much Carlo and Shift to Rail to develop, demonstrate and deliver new functionalities and specifications. ERA would continue to have a strong role to ensure that the principles of interoperability are enforced and enhanced. The Commission will propose solutions, including new legislation where needed and duly justified, but not just for the sake of a new legislation. We have to be also very careful what we propose, because a lot of it, what we already have, is simply not yet implemented, and that is where we should also put our focus. So I don't think that this is something we need. I think what we need is really to implement and to make sure then that all the bottlenecks are resolved and the missing links are fulfilled. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that we can all agree that we have the willingness and commitment to deliver the solutions that this sector is looking for at the European level. Decisions made also at the national, company, infrastructure manager level will be crucial to make this happen and support the much-needed change and modernization. I firmly believe that we move beyond national, custom-made and expensive solutions to make sure the European rail system will be fully able to reap its potential and also use a window of opportunity that it has now for future development. Time for action is now. I'm equally looking forward to continuing the good cooperation with all of you, work together and make a positive change happen. Thank you for being here and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Henrik, for your inspiring words. I believe you have given us true objectives and true challenges that we now will try to deliver as far as we can. Now, we have spoken about innovation, we have spoken about the targets, and now I invite Carlo Borghini, the Executive Director of the Shift to Rail joint undertaking. He will speak about ERTMS as a cornerstone for innovation in railways. Carlo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, good morning to everyone. Thank you again to Josef for the invitation to speak here. I will start with a quote. And the quote is the following. To make the Union the world's first climate-neutral continent is the greatest challenge and opportunity of our times. It involves taking decisive action now. We will need to invest in innovation and research, redesign our economy and update our industrial policy. This is at the heart of Shift Rail, and this is a statement of President-elect Ursula von der Leyen on number one priority, that is a European Green Deal. So I was in a conference in Rotterdam on Rail Freight Forward, and it was presented a few slides about how in the port of Rotterdam they put together a group working on Port Authority, the shipping, the rail system, and so on and so on, and the slide was extremely interesting. The last slide was scary because it was a track, an elephant on the track, and on top of the elephant was written ERTMS. And my heart sank a bit and I stopped breathing. And it's incredible that as a sector, having invested so much money and effort in ERTMS, we are not able to promote the excellence of what we are doing. Do you see the empty chair? It's not empty, it's the future. And it's looking at you. And where I want to come. ERTMS, I don't have to say myself, I think Mr. Oley provided a vision that there is the cornerstone of the system because it's a key component in the digitalization of the railway system. But it's not the ERTMS the issue. The issue is today we have a rail system or rail system that due to their complexity, because they are system of system, it was mentioned also before, repeated before, is reaching its limits in terms of capacity, it reaches its end of life, it reaches the inability to deliver the services that are expected by the freight, by the logistic value chain, and by the passengers. So ERTMS is a clear opportunity to optimize the CCS value chain. But it's not only a you-lead approach. There is a need at national level to start to invest in the digitalization and automation of the rail system, and the ERTMS offers the opportunity to create an integrated and connected network that is delivering the single market, once again for people and for freight. Why is it a cornerstone for research and innovation? Because we are developing new solutions that need a common baseline on which we can hook them. And we have clear results coming, and we cannot imagine that we will continue to develop solutions on a piecemeal approach or a patchwork. We need to have a European network on which we can hook our new solution. Delivering integrated and connected traffic management, digital twin, rail freight operation and technological solution, mobility as a service require as much as possible a shared and agreed baseline to work on it. So in this respect, also the work we are doing on the functional system architecture, taking advantage of the work already developed in terms of RCA, the work started on Ocora, is an essential component because we need to embrace all the solutions and to be sure that the outcome of Shift to Rail, and this for us is a priority to deliver the game changers as starting point, are completely coherent. And this is really why once again, we need to have the ERTMS deployed as much as we can. So the 2022 TSI for us, from our point of view, clearly should include the telecom aspect, the FRMCS aspect, but for us, in order to harvest all the benefit of the work we are doing in Shift to Rail and to improve the system at European Union level, we should not underestimate the level of automation. And was asked the question before, by 2022, we'll have the specification for GEO4. I know that maybe we cannot regulate about it, but by 2022, we have the specification by GEO4. So there are no way the future is looking at us that we can stop it. We need to look at moving blocks. We need to look at satellite positioning. These are all the elements that when we put them together, they will provide the necessary competitive advantage of the rail system and harvest the benefit of the rail system. So I think is this the time that really we make the shift to rail. And I think it's really the time that we invest in the advancement of the technology available today in the market. And Shift to Rail is about working together. The last panel we had on the stage, I heard 6 different visions. And I think we need to start to dialogue about it. And Shift to Rail is the place where we have this dialogue going on. We need to be sure that we use the ERTMS as a baseline, is the cornerstone on which we bring up all these new solutions, we bring up modularization, we digitalize the system, we introduce automation. So for us it's a key component because without a clear deployment of ERTMS, without a harmonized baseline, the issue is that we will create more gaps between different national systems, will not be able to benefit from a network at European Union level. So for me, there are no excuses. We need to invest in the deployment of ERTMS. We need to introduce the modularization we discussed before. We need to move from concept related to from hardware to software. We need to have this continued capacity to upgrade the system. ERTMS will include all this. But for us in Shift to Rail, the first aspect is to deliver the game changers for CCS TSI 22, because these are really the key elements that will provide the benefit for the rail system. So, no excuses. The future is looking at us, and the results of the changes will come from the effort of each of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlo. And now we get the perspective on threats and opportunities from digitalization, presented by Rossen Naidenov from ENISA. Rossen, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I will present a little bit a different view on the critical infrastructure, in this case in the rail, specifically from a cybersecurity point of view. And most importantly, what ENISA and the NIS directive and the new Cybersecurity Act, which was recently adopted, can affect the critical sectors and also, in this case, the railway sector. So a little bit of information of what ENISA do. We are a European Union agency such as ERA, which is tasked with promoting a high level of cybersecurity amongst the member states and the critical sectors. So how do we do this? We work with the community. Every year we have an annual work program which we deliver reports on cybersecurity issues which are relevant for the industry and the member states. Every year we have a working program which is being adopted with the help of the member states and also with the industry advisory group. We also support the European Commission and the member states in implementing different policies related to cybersecurity. And you will see later the NIS directive, which includes the railway sector and most importantly the railway undertakings and infrastructure managers are part of what we are delivering as a support for the European Commission and for the member states implementing it. And also we have here we have a third but also a fourth which is not mentioned here, and I will mention it a little bit. The third one is we organize exercises. So we organize cybersecurity testing exercising in specific sectors. Unfortunately, rail so far was not one of them. This year is going to be energy, where we conduct an exercise if a crisis occurs in one member state. How do you communicate? To whom do you call? How do you handle this? And if it affects, how do you handle this if it affects also other member states? And the fourth pillar, which is not mentioned here, comes from the Cybersecurity Act, which I will mention a little bit later, where we are tasked with the preparation of the schemes for the certification schemes for the cybersecurity certification framework. So I will go a little bit deeper in the two policies that I mentioned, and most importantly, the NIS directive and the Cybersecurity Act, which are very relevant for this sector. Now, very important, what does the NIS directive require generally? Generally, the idea of the NIS directive is to make a higher level of cybersecurity amongst member states and for critical sectors. The critical sectors here you see in this picture are divided by two. In blue are the operator of essential services, what it's called. These are the so-called critical sector. One of them is transport, and in transport you have aviation, road authorities, and rail. Also, there are some digital service providers which are marked in red, which also follow the same principles. The principles in the NIS directive are that you need to have security measures identified for all operators of essential services, which are marked with blue, and incident reporting. So this means that significant incidents, not all incidents, needs to be reported to the competent authority which is relevant for the sector. Also, the NIS directive requires that there is a cooperation group set up. A cooperation group is the body which works on implementation of the NIS directive in the member states. It is comprised with all 28 member states with the support of the European Commission and ENISA, and also creates a CSIRT network, which is the national CSIRTs in one network with the Secretariat of ENISA. It also tasks each and every member state to have a national cybersecurity strategy, which more or less all member states have. Some timelines. So The operators of essential services should have been identified already. So if you are an operator of essential services, you should have received the information or notification from the competent authority in your country that you are nominated as an operator of essential services. In May 2019, the European Commission has created a report on the consistency of implementation of the NIS directive in the member states. And next year, in 2021, in May, there will be a revision of the NIS directive. Some more information regarding which is relevant for this sector, regarding the operation of the cooperation group, which leads the implementation of the NIS directive, and most importantly, the security measures and the incident reporting for operators of essential services. So there are many groups formed inside the cooperation group, as you see. The most important ones for this sector are the security measures of operator services, which are led by France, and also the incident reporting for operators of essential services, which are led by Netherlands and Poland. So these, in some cases, the security measures have been identified, 31 security measures have been identified, which are horizontal for all sectors. And ENISA is working, and you will see later, to see and map these security measures to the rail sector. The incident reporting requires that significant incidents, and there is a guideline how to identify a specific incident, if it is significant or not, to be reported to the national competent authority, and on an annual basis, the national competent authority needs to report to the cooperation group on an annual basis to have information for trends and analysis. Next one, the incident reporting for OESs. This is how it is envisaged, how an OES could report an incident which affect multiple countries, multiple member states. So there is a single point of contact which is identified in the NIS directive. And this single point of contact is used to communicate information to other member states. As you see, the cooperation group also receives information regarding incidents, as I said before, for analysis and trend completion. Also, there is a connection between the cooperation group and the CCRT network, which is the operational body, when there is an incident that needs to be evaluated and do something about it. Security measures for OESs, as I said, 31 have been identified in these 4 different domains: governance and ecosystem, protection, defense, and resilience. And these security measures have been agreed on the cooperation group, so these are the minimum security measures. This means that because this is a directive, this gives the possibility of each member state to add specific security measures, either for a specific sector or as a whole on horizontal level. ENISA is working on sectorial implementation of the NIS directive, so we are working in different sectors, and in this case, we're working in rail, you will see in the next slide, but we have worked already in different modes of transport, in aviation, in finance, in energy, and in e-health to identify possibilities for specific security measures, how to identify operators of essential services in these particular sectors, and so on and so forth. This has been always in support of the cooperation group asking for this information. Now, in terms of what we're doing this year, we are taking the horizontal security measures, and we have sent a questionnaire to many organizations already. I hope it has reached to you, where we are trying to validate the horizontal security measures that have been identified by the cooperation group with the rail sector. So we would like to see if these security measures that are there are valid for the rail sector, if there are any other measures that you believe should be included, and some information regarding stakeholder management. Who are you talking to when an incident or a situation happens? So this has been sent already. If you want to know more, you can find me later, and I can give you more information on this study. Now, a little bit of more information, which I believe is of interest to the sector regarding the cybersecurity certification framework. This has been included in the Cybersecurity Act, which was recently adopted, and it gave the power of ENISA to create a cybersecurity scheme and propose to CENELEC for adoption. Now, the idea behind this that it is not ENISA that decides which and what to be included in a certification scheme. There is a group, and I will show you now how this has been organized. So there is the European Commission with its certification bodies, CENELEC. There is one permanent stakeholder group which is organized of the 28 member state certification standardization bodies, and there is another what is called stakeholder cybersecurity coordination group, for which there was a call which ended up recently. I hope you have heard about it and you have applied to it, because this was open to the industry standardization bodies and associations which are relevant to provide information regarding what to be included next into the program for creating a certification schemes. For each and every certification scheme that is going to be created, there will be an ad hoc group. In this ad hoc group, there will be a call for each such scheme, and you can apply for this as long as it is valid for your sector and the expertise that you provide. This ad hoc group will provide expertise to the to other groups, including also the European Commission and CENELEC, in creating this certification scheme. The idea behind this certification scheme is that once this has been approved, similar schemes on a national level should stop to produce certificates, and they should be used only one scheme which is European-wide. Currently, there is no specific scheme being targeted for the rail sector. This is something that needs to be adopted in the program in order to be included for future creation. Currently, the scheme that is being in the pipeline is the SOGIS scheme for common criteria. And I think this is all of me. Thank you for your attention.
Well, I would like to thank all keynote speakers. We are now coming to the end of the morning session. Hans, do you have some instructions? Or Antonio? Yeah, please. And I give just a small token.
So, hello everybody. We have a voting session in the afternoon to choose the questions for the panel with the CEOs. We kindly ask you to download the application Slido on your phone. It's available both for iOS and Android phones. If you experience any problem, you can contact us. The ones with the red lanyards are ready to help. We will announce the voting, and it will be during the next coffee break in the afternoon. But for the time being, we ask you to prepare your mobile phones for picking up the questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, coming back to the lunch, this will be the last lunch in Valenciennes for most of you in this year. We start now, and please come back at 2:15. Thank you.